Welcome everyone to Aging in Action. And today I'm very happy to introduce uh, Derek Moxam, who happens to be my nephew, but no bias there. Hi, Derek. Welcome
Hello.
to Aging in Action.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, Derek, in 2015, you were injured at home, and just tell us briefly about that.
Okay. Yeah, it was, it was just past. It's been 6 years. So in October 2015, I was at home, unfortunately, had a dizzy spell and had a catastrophic fall downstairs. If I would have fallen one way, it would have only been 3 steps and I would have just picked myself up and carried on. But unfortunately, I fell into the basement and I suffered a spinal cord injury. So I'm a higher level spinal cord injury, the cervical C6, C7. It's a complete injury. And my partner found me and we called 911. The first responders came and really didn't know what to do, waited for the ambulance. I was airlifted to Sudbury HSN, where I underwent a spinal cord injury, immediate surgery, and they fused my fracture, and that was my diagnosis. I was given a 3% chance of ever walking again. Once I was able to breathe on my own, because once you suffer the injury, you go into a spinal shock. I was then airlifted to Lyndhurst Rehab Hospital, where I spent about 6 months in rehab, learning and developing independence, using what mobility I have to, get back to living the life that I had before injury. And I've done a great job at that. I'm really independent. With the proper amount of exercise and diet, I'm able to lead quite a full life with my partner Cliff. And yeah, we live on Manitoulin Island. It's pretty rural, but it's a pretty full and complete life. So that was 6 years ago. And in that time, I've done some traveling. We've done a lot of renovations on our home. And yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a horrible thing, but a lot of people look at it as a death sentence, and it's really not. You can actually live quite a full and complete life in a chair. Eventually, everybody suffers from some mobility issues, so mine's just come a little earlier than others.
Wow, Derek, as you're sharing your story, there's a lot of information you kind of piled in there, and I'm sure it's been quite a process and a journey for you and your partner. And we all want to thank you for sharing that and offering your time here today with us. I mean, it must have not been easy, right, from the injury to getting to this place of acceptance, right? Can you talk a little bit about that journey? Was it challenging? Were you accepting right away? And what kind of support system did you have in place as you were, going through that journey?
I did accept the injury right away. And when I was in the hospital, I didn't quite understand my diagnosis. I wasn't sure, is this just a little hiccup that I'm going to be able to recover from and get back on my feet and start jogging again? But I slowly became to understand the seriousness of my injury and accepted that right away. And I wanted to move on with independence and doing as much as I can. And we have really helped with that. Luckily, I've had a really good support system in my partner, with my friends, my family. I've got a really good health team. And at Lyndhurst, they teach you to be as independent as you can. So to take care of things on your own. And once I got home, that's when the real recovery started. I started exercising after a long time. I want to say it was at least a year. But after a year, something kicked me in the butt and said, you've got to get going with this. And exercise and keeping a really good diet and sleeping regimen gave me the energy to focus on independence. So at one time, I was not able to transfer from my chair into my bed or vice versa. Showering was always complicated. Once I started exercising and getting stronger, my outlook changed and I was more apt to trying new things. So I started transferring with my transfer board. on my own. And luckily I was successful, started sitting up in bed, dressing myself. All of these things slowly came as I got stronger and kept my positive mentality. I think had a lot to do with it as well. But yes, you're right. I've got a really strong support system and an adaptable home. So my home, the first level is totally accessible. I can get around and about. There's no barriers. And pretty much gotten back to the way life was before injury. I'm back at work now, which is a good thing for my routine, being part of the team environment. And yeah, there certainly is a lot that's happened.
Yeah, you said you're back to work, and I think you work for American Express Global Business Travel.
That's correct. Yeah.
Because you also mentioned you travel a lot, right? I don't know if they connect. Do you want to talk a little bit about your work experience there?
Sure. So I started the job back in 2008 and actually moved to Halifax, Nova Scotia, with my partner for the job, and quickly, progressed through the work environment. Was offered a home office position, and because of that, we were able to work, from wherever. And we moved back to Ontario, and we bought the house here. And there's been a lot of changes with the company, but it was HRG, and we've been bought out by American Express Business Travel. So we're now the largest corporate travel supplier in the world. And the traveling that I've done is different than the travel that I book. So I've done some leisure travel, but the travel that we book is business travel for our clients. My experience with traveling has been leisure travel. And once we decided we were going to take a trip, I did. I know a girl who is, she used to work under me and went into leisure travel. So I brought her on as an agent because it is quite complicated to arrange everything. So not only do I have to book my flight, but we have to find a hotel that is accessible. What I often do is I'll have a salesperson go up into the room, take pictures of the shower area, make sure there's no barriers. The sink has to be a certain height. Usually hotels and resorts specifically only have 2 or 3 of these rooms because they need to be usually on the main floor, and they're quite different than the other rooms they sell. So once we narrow it down to the resort, we need to check and see, is there a doctor on call? How far is the nearest hospital? Will I be able to have access to the beach? I prefer an adults only resort. So once we've got that booked, we have to consider the airlines and the flight. I've got to call beforehand. I need to transfer into an aisle chair, and some of that's been a little crazy. Let me tell you a bit about my first trip. We booked a charter service from Sudbury Regional Airport, and it was in the middle of February, and we were going to Mexico. And after speaking to the airport manager and reconfirming with the supplier that I was quadriplegic in a wheelchair and would need assistance, sure enough, we arrived at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning at the Sudbury Regional Airport to catch our flight. It's February, it's the middle of a winter storm, and nobody has any idea that I was in a wheelchair. Mixed messaging. So
Wow.
what happens is I'm taken out onto the tarmac in the middle of the winter. My partner's behind me. I've got a flight attendant and a baggage handler wrapped me in a blanket, and she's behind me lifting me up, the flight attendant, and the baggage handler has my feet. And as I'm going up the stairs, I can see ice on the steps, and I'm just, Jesus, take the whatever happens, happens. There's not much I could do at this point. Once I got onto the flight, the level of my injury, I've got paralysis, complete paralysis from my chest line down. And some people assume, well, you're in a wheelchair, maybe you're just a paraplegic, you've got a lot of upper body movement. I don't. So they had to transfer me. It's a 2-man transfer into my aisle chair on the flight. And it was just a ridiculous situation, and after all of the calls we made and after all the preparation, sure enough, when we arrive at our destination, it's the same thing. Nobody's aware that there's a quadriplegic on the flight. there I am again with a baggage handler, who's got my feet going down this tarmac, going down these steps. And, it's a horrific experience, to be honest. Once you get to the resort, you can spend 2 weeks there and relax, but always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, there's always the trip home. So one thing that I've got rid of is the flight from Sudbury. We'll now travel to Toronto, where I can go into the gate and people are a little bit more experienced there. But yeah, it's just a live and learn thing, right?
Wow.
Once I book the room in the flight, there's equipment that I need. I need a Hoyer lift. I need a medical bed, like a hospital bed that can up and down. I need shower chairs. I need a whole host of things. So I need to find a local company that rents these things. And that's at an additional cost for me as well. Not only that, but the transfer from the airport to the hotel, I can't go on the regular bus. There is room for wheelchairs, but my level of injury requires a little bit more assistance. So we have to book separate transportation to the hotel. So there's all these additional costs and factors to take into consideration when booking a trip. It's just not simple.
And it's not fair. I mean, you want to go for a trip and have a break, like,
Right.
everybody needs that break, right? And you have to go through all these loopholes, and it just shows you, our lack of knowledge when it comes to accessibility just in general. And I know we've done some episodes when we've talked about accessibility, just locally, not even with the whole travel.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other discussion,
Yeah.
ladies, that we can look at bringing on for another episode.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that's been your experience when it comes to travel.
Yeah.
And I see you have Ready and Able. I think Gwen included that. Can you talk about Ready and Able? Does that have anything to do with assisting with accessibility knowledge in our community?
Not so much in our community, but that's through work. And it's, when COVID happened, the corporate travel business really took a hit. And a lot of our focus shifted into online training. And what I really dove into was equality, inclusion. And there was a new department that started called DE&I. And it's an umbrella for all of these different departments that American Express is now focusing on. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And under that umbrella, there's so many different classes. Two that I'm a part of are Ready and Able, which is for the disabled community at work. Another one is LEAGUE. It's the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender division of our company. So I'm a part of both, but Ready and Able is focused on disability. And, it's just a new group that we've started. So we're kind of, all brainstorming about different things. But there was recently an accident, I want to say, an unfortunate situation where a disability advocate, her name was Ingracia Figueroa. I'm not sure if I pronounced that great, but she was a disability advocate in the States, and United Airlines really dropped the ball on this. She arrived at the airport, checked in for her flight, and her wheelchair was damaged. And when she arrived at her destination, I believe, they gave her a loaner chair, and she was in this loaner chair for 5 hours. And that's the amount of time it takes to develop any kind of pressure wound or any kind of ulcer if you're not in a properly prepared chair. United Airlines took the chair, the loaner chair they provided actually contributed to part of that damage. Now, people don't realize these chairs are the cost of cars. They're about upwards of $20,000 to $30,000, and they're very specific. Mine itself, I actually have a custom fitted ride seat. And when I was at Lyndhurst, they actually took a mold of my back, sent it to Texas, and had a seat designed in Texas that came up and then was properly adjusted to my chair. Not only that, but when I get fitted for a chair, I have an occupational therapist, a physiotherapist, and a doctor around, but everything is measured. The size of my feet, the distance from my knee to my heel, am I putting any pressure from my legs on any part of the chair? It's just so specific. So a lot of people assume that when a chair is damaged, they can give you a loaner chair and they'll take the chair on and provide you with another one, and it's just not that easy. So what happened with Ingracia is, while she was, United Airlines decided they were going to fix the chair. So they gave her a loaner chair, which caused some damage. And the amount of time it took for them going through insurance and deciding that they were going to replace her chair, her pressure wounds actually developed to pretty serious, where they actually affected the bone. And unfortunately, she passed away on October 31st of this year as a result of her pressure wounds, which were contributed to her wheelchair being damaged by United Airlines. And the amount of time it took them to, at first they wanted to take the chair and fix it themselves. But it was just several months, and it's just a horrible story. But it really shook the spinal cord injury community, the wheelchair community as a whole. And this is part of the problem. The amount of wheelchair damage, baggage handlers often just take wheelchairs and throw them. They're, like I said, they can be upwards of the cost of a car or an automobile, and they need to be treated.
So I would assume that you don't have spare ones at home, right? I mean, if you're going to buy a wheelchair at the price of a car, it's not like you have 2-3 spares in your closet here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And I'm fortunate I have insurance and I live in Canada. We have a lot of different programs that help assist with the cost of a chair, but that's not the case everywhere. And unfortunately, in her case, she definitely didn't have a loaner chair. The chair she was using just contributed to her health. And unfortunately, in the end, she passed away. It's an unfortunate situation, but it's stories like this that need to be brought to attention to, really start to get things done.
I don't think people realize, you're in a wheelchair and everything's fine and dandy. Well, it is, your health is affected by every aspect of your mobility, right? And when you can't move, that's when pressure sores develop and all of those things, and urinary tract infections. Like, there's a lot involved. You're not just a person sitting in a wheelchair. It's your body is affected by all of those things.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it's life-threatening.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be, like finding an accessible washroom in an airport, or just these little things that people take for granted. It's kind of like, wow, this washroom is universal. I can use this. It shouldn't be the case. I should be expecting these things. Whether I'm at a restaurant, whether I'm in any kind of public place, it shouldn't be a struggle to find, the privacy to use a washroom that I can fit into and that's accessible for me. So yeah, I know Spinal Cord Injury Ontario, they really focus on that, and they advocate for just different things, and that's great. But traveling is a whole other boat, because you're traveling to a foreign country, things to consider, like, what if my luggage gets lost overnight? So when we're packing my carry-on luggage, I've got to pack my medications, emergency supplies. If I arrive at my destination and I'm without these things for 2 or 3 days, I can get seriously ill. So it's all of these things that are taken into consideration when traveling. And I'm lucky to be a part of American Express, because GBT, because they're really starting to focus on these things. And they've got the kind of backing that they can, kind of influence different hotels or airlines to kind of consider this if they haven't already. And it's exciting, because I'm a part of this group at work, and we're making some headway. We've just launched it, but we're making headroom. We're getting noticed, and being on shows like this and talking about it, I think, is great as well.
Derek, you mentioned Spinal Cord Injury Ontario, and I see here, because Gwen's given us some great information, that you are a mentor with a program there. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I'm going to guess that's some type of support program that's being offered, right?
It is, yes. And I recently just got my certificate, and it's still going through HR with spinal cord injury, but Ontario, but it is quite the process. Nadine Law had seen some of my videos on YouTube, and I believe it was through my aunt, and I think they work together in some respect, but she saw some of my videos and figured I'd be a great mentor Living where I live, I never really considered it being a peer mentor, but after some discussion, it was my mentality and, my way of life that people wanted. They thought I should, put it out there and assist anybody needing help. So there was a certificate, an online program I did online, and I completed that, and it's just in the process of going through. But I will be a peer mentor for Spinal Cord Injury Ontario, usually newly injured people who, might be suffering from PTSD. They might be struggling with some aspect of going home. Maybe they don't have a home to go to, So I'll be up for mentoring these people. I haven't yet completed the process at this point. I'm not, but I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely. And being where I am, I've really resorted to online support for me, myself. I just can't hop on an accessible bus out here on Manitoulin Island and meet with, other quadriplegics or, join any kind of team, a wheelchair rugby team. Those options aren't available to me. So a lot of the support I need and look for, I receive from other mentors online that I've come through to know through the spinal cord injury community. I also admin for quite a large group on Facebook. It's called the Spinal Cord Injury Rehabilitation and Recovery Group. We've got over 10,000 members. And that also keeps me, familiar with any issues in the news. And we do a lot of peer support, but we're always posting posts about accessibility, any developments in the spinal cord injury world, a lot of exercise, a lot of different rehabilitation centers will contribute videos showing any developments that they've got, whether it's equipment or stem cell research, and just videos of people getting up and making the most of their injuries. Some of them walking with walkers after being bedbound for months. It's a really inspirational group, and I'm glad to be a part of it. But yeah, going back to the mentorship, I mean, Spinal Cord Injury Ontario was available at Lyndhurst. There was always mentors around in the wheelchairs if you wanted to talk, but I didn't really need it at that point. It wasn't until I got home. And that's where, I made a lot of solid online relationships with people. And, to this day, I always reach out for support. One gentleman I know has been in a chair for 25 years. So his experience is, it's something I look, if I've got a question, I run to him.
Wow.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'm keeping an eye on time here. I know we could probably talk all day, and here's some amazing information that you've shared. And I know I mentioned earlier, we appreciate everything, that you're sharing with us today and our viewers. And so just with keeping an eye on time, is there any final thoughts that you want to tell our viewers before, we wrap up this episode?
Let me think. I think I'm a prime example of life in a wheelchair, life with a spinal cord injury, and I lead quite a full life with my partner, my dog. We travel, we have visits, so there is life after spinal cord injury. It's not something to sit you back and, for you to feel that you're lost or, not capable of doing certain things. If I listened to all the doctors that told me I would never be able to do this, and that, I'd probably still be, confined to bed thinking about what they've said. But, with exercise, diet, you can get your health up and you can lead quite a full life. So I guess I would leave it with that.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. We
We
appreciate it. I mean, you've definitely helped us and our viewers age in action.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Thank
Derek.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.